guys, Jackson here. Today I'm going to show you all how I achieved this red hair using the L'Oreal Excellence HiColor Reds for dark hair only. This is a step-by-step tutorial, so let's just get started. The first thing that I like to do is line my table with aluminum foil. On top of that aluminum foil, you will need your mixing bowls, your hair dye, your developer, and some gloves for protection. For this tutorial, I will be using virgin Peruvian hair from Premier Lace Wigs. You guys might be familiar with this company. I've done several reviews for their wigs, but this time I decided to try out their bundles. I will be sure to do an in-depth review on the actual hair itself later on my channel, but for right now, we're gonna focus on coloring these bad boys. So I received 4 bundles. The lengths are 22, 20, 18, which I'm holding in my hand, 16 inches, and then that closure is a 14-inch middle part closure. It is a lace closure, so if you need to, you might need to bleach the knots. Alright, so getting started, I wanted to have a little bit of depth of color. So the first 2 bundles, the longest bundles, will feature a darker tone, which is an Auburn red. What's going to lay on top of that is the 2 shortest bundles, the 18 and the 16, as well as the lace closure. And that color is going to be a magenta or red tone. To get started, if you are brand new to this, you definitely want to follow the instructions per the box. It's just going to make your life a lot easier so that you won't make any crazy mistakes. But since I've used this before, I'm just going to jump right on in. So you want to, pop a hole into the top and squeeze all of the contents out. So since this is the first bundle, this is the longest bundle, 22 inches, it's going to feature that dark wine color, so to speak, or 99J if you're old school like me. As you guys can see, the contents squeeze out white, but that little bottle there is the intensifier, and that's what's going to make the color. So you just want to go ahead and squeeze everything out, including the contents in the small tube. Be sure to be careful because this is red dye and it gets everywhere. So after that, you want to do 1 part of the hair dye, 2 parts of your developer. For me, I'm using Wella 40 volume developer, but if you want your process to move a little bit slower, then you'll use a lower developer, so like a 20 volume or even a 30. As always, be sure to mix your contents all together until you get a nice smooth concoction. I wanted to take a moment and talk about this process really quickly. So it will call for 1 part dye, 2 parts developer. But if you find that when you do that it's still a little bit too thick, please feel free to add a little bit more at a time. You just don't want it to be runny, but you do want a nice consistency. All right, so once that's done, then we're just gonna go ahead and start pretty much just applying the product to the hair. So as you guys can see, I am moving in a downward motion. I promised myself that I would not say downward stroke on this video because it just doesn't come off right, you know what I'm saying? So I'm using a downward motion, and you guys will later see that I go in between doing a downward motion and flipping it over and using it as a brush, and I'll explain why I do that very shortly. But for right now, we're just going to focus on applying the first layer of hair color. Applying that first layer of hair color is just going to do exactly that. It's only applying the first layer of hair color, which is why you want to go in and kind of break apart that hair and really work your way inside, and you guys will see that shortly. If you've ever colored hair before, then you know that this process gets pretty redundant, so I did speed up just for the purpose of time. But you really want to make sure that you completely saturate the hair. That is so important, and especially if you're doing it this way. As you guys can see, I did not take apart the bundle itself. I'm just working from that molded bundle there. So you really want to make sure that you go in and saturate the hair very nicely, or else you'll end up having like more of like highlights and it will look very splotchy, which is not what we're going for, especially with the bottom bundles. So just keep working. Then you want to take your fingers and just kind of comb through and make sure that everything is saturated. After that's done, then you can take the hair, put it all together, and then take one of those aluminum foil sheets and fold your hair up into the aluminum foil. Fold it all together, but not too tight because you do want it to breathe, and let it process. Again, guys, this process gets pretty redundant, so I did want you guys to see what the color looks like out of the tube with the magenta color. As you guys can see, it is a fire red, which if you remember from the beginning of the video, we had to add like an intensifier. Well, with this one, everything is already pre-made and done for you. All you need to do is add your developer and you're good to go. I love using this L'Oreal HiColor product because it just makes it so easy for you. If you're not good at coloring hair, or you don't know the science behind it, it can be really frustrating, and they take very good care in making sure that this process is easy for you. So that's why I like to use this. All right, so 1 part product, 2 parts developer. As I stated before, if you needed more, please be sure to do that. Now, for some reason with this magenta bottle, I had to add a lot more developer to it. So it was really like 1 part hair dye, maybe 4 parts developer, if that makes sense. Which I was a little bit afraid, but it was like, it turned into, like the first time I did it, it started to look like paste. It wasn't like something that was very pliable. So this is what it looks like after applying a bunch of developer. But as you guys can see, it's like a fire, like a crayon fire red. And yeah, there's me adding more developer again. At some point I just said, you know what, let me stop. Maybe it's supposed to be this thick. I wasn't very sure, but this was probably the thickest product that I've dealt with. And I'm wondering if maybe they wanted it like that because it's so red and they needed for it to attach to the bundles very well. I don't know. First of all, can we just talk about this light though? For some reason, the sun just decided to peek through at the right time. Everything was just on fleek. The light was on fleek. All right, so redundancy, as you guys can see, I'm just going through and applying the product. As you guys can see, it is a lot thicker than the other one, right? I don't know what it is about this magenta bottle. Maybe it was old or not. I don't know. Have you used this before? Let me know. Was it like that when you used it? All right, so I'm gonna take it all the way up, pull the hair apart, and just make sure I work my way in and really saturating the hair. Now for this bundle, I really did go in and kind of flip it over and use my brush more as like a real brush, kind of combing through to make sure that everything was nicely saturated. As everything, be sure to take your fingers and comb through to make sure that the bundle is nice and saturated. And then you're just going to put it inside of the aluminum foil. Fold it up, but not too tight because you need that air ventilation so that it can process, and then put it off to the side and you're good to go. All right, so for our last portion of our hair dye, I'm going to start working on the lace closure. But I wanted to talk about what I'm going to do with this lace closure because I will not be coloring the roots. So I'm going to start working my way from the bottom up using this lace closure. I want to have that kind of dark root, you know, trend that's going on. And because this is red hair, and usually when I'm afraid of a color, I like to start off using a dark root, and then I'll work my way fully into wearing the color. So as always, nothing's new. Just go ahead and start working your way and adding the dye to the hair. Okay, so for your lace closure, you can move as normal, but when you get up to the root area, you want to slow down and start doing a process called balayage. Now, balayage is a coloring technique, which is really good for like ombreing and just making sure that you have a nice uniform hair color. The last thing you want is like these really stark roots where it's just like black and then it's red. You don't want that, or whatever color you decide to put there. You want it to be like black, maybe a little bit of brown hinting into the red, and oh my god, it's red. That's kind of what you want it to be, right? So that's where we're going for here, which is why balayage is so important. So I'm just going to continue to do that. Since the balayage is done at that point, I'm just going in and further saturating the area. And as always, I'm going to comb out, fold it up in the aluminum foil and let this hair process. For me, I typically let my hair bundles process for at least 4 hours, and then I move on, wash and condition, and then voila, once the hair is dry, this is the final look. And I love it. That is why I love L'Oreal, this L'Oreal hair color, because it makes it so easy. If I were to do this kind of like the old school way, I would have to first bleach it, which I'll probably have to lift it twice, and then I would have to add the color, and that's just annoying. All right, okay, so this first bundle is the bundle with the deep Auburn red, which is so cute. Yes. And then the next bundle is the magenta color. As you guys can see, it just turned out to be a very nice red. And as you guys can see some of the black root peeking through. I wanted it to mimic the lace closure so that everything can move in uniform with each other. This is the 16-inch bundle. And the hair is still very healthy, I gotta say that. All right, and then lastly, here is the closure. And I loved how the closure turned out. All right, guys, please be sure to be on the lookout for my installation video of this hair. Love you so much. Peace out.